Greetings. This homework assignment is all about one thing, allowing the player to save an entire graph, which remember contains all the rooms, so like save a level to a file, and then load one from a file. The way that you do this in Java is something called serialization. The word serial in this context is as opposed to parallel. So parallel means you're doing multiple things at the same time. Serial means you do things sequentially, one thing after another. So serialization means you're going to take some kind of data structure that possibly has some very complex things in it. So here we've got a map of nodes, and nodes have all of their own fields. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a representation of this complex data structure that is a serial representation. That is to say, it is a sequence of characters. And what that lets you do is it lets you store that sequence of characters into a file and then reload it again to create your original object. So serializing is easy. You just say implements serializable, and then you have to import serializable. And that's all there is to it, as long as all of your fields are also serializable. So all of the built-in data types like int and string and double, those are all serializable. But any data types that you've created, like node, you have to have those data types also implement serializable. So here I will say implements serializable. Okay. You might be wondering why even, but if that's all it takes, if we don't add any more code that explains how to serialize it, why even bother? Like, couldn't Java have sort of handled internally just like assume you said implement serializable? And the answer is, for our simple example, it could have. But for some kinds of example, we wouldn't necessarily want to save all of the fields. We might want some fields, like ones that change a lot, not to get saved. And those are called transient fields. Transient meaning changeable. I don't really want to talk about that right now, but you can read about it on your own if you're interested in serializability in broader contexts. For the moment, I want to write the skeleton code for the save and loading methods. I'm going to point you at a tutorial where you can look at the save load methods, and part of this homework assignment is going to be understanding that. The save method we're going to put, so we're putting these both in the graph class. The save method is going to return Boolean for whether or not it was successful, and we'll call it save level to file. And it'll take a string as an input, that's a path. I'm just going to add a little comment here. So saves the current graph to a file given by path. So an example of path would be, you could just give it a file name, like mylevel dot whatever, like graph, or you could give it a whole file path, so like C drive, data folder, mylevel.graph. So that's up to you. But it's going to return true if successful, false otherwise. Why might it not be successful? Maybe it can't find the file path that you specified because you specified a folder that doesn't exist. Maybe something else goes wrong. And you'll see there's going to be a try-catch block in the tutorial, and you'll see sort of where you put the various bits. So that's that one. If you think from the perspective of client code that uses this, we already have a graph. So if your graph object is called G, you would just say g.savelevelToFile. Okay, what about loading? Well, I guess you could do something like make a non-static version of this called load from file, and you give it the path to the file. And what it does is it loads it from the file, and it will change your graph's hash map to match the one that it says in the file. I'm going to choose to do this a little bit differently. I want to make a static method that actually returns a new graph object that we created from the file. And the reason we're doing that is mostly just because it matches the tutorial a little bit better. So return new graph object loaded from file, path to saved data, and this returns the new graph object. Okay, so part of your job will be to fill in those two methods. All right, but we also want to allow the user to use it. So let's do this. Here inside main, I want you to add one more command word. Instead of all the existing command words, let's have a command word called save. So if words 0 equals save, then that will save your current thing to the disk. You should have the second word in the list be the name of the file it saves. So in other words, you'll just run the save method from your graph. Last of all, if you want to do something up here where you ask the user, do you want to load a save file or do you want to generate a thing, you could do that. Just for testing purposes, I think once you've run it and you've saved a game, what you should do just to test is comment all this out, and then you can say graph g equals graph.load from file, and give it the name of whatever you told it to save as. So like mylevel.graph. And then just make sure you can run it and actually load it from the file properly. Okay, that's it. Good luck.